Well, this is, let me just start with good morning. It's nice to actually see people in the state of lockdown. I hope you and all your families are staying healthy. And thanks for joining us this morning. This is our second time doing this. We did it last Wednesday on the eastern side of the state. And I guess the impetus behind it was Jennifer and I were receiving a lot of the same repetitive questions from different clients, and things are a little on the foggy side now on the funding front, so we thought it'd be productive to put a series of these together. We have another one scheduled for next Wednesday down in our Blue Ash markets. So just trying to get the word out. Yeah, I know there's a lot of information out there, but just to have an interactive opportunity for you folks to ask us questions, we thought it would be helpful to our clients, our partners, anybody who would like that information. So Jennifer, who I referred to as our funding wizard, and I kind of gather a rough outline how we're seeing things right now. So I will kick it off and start with the state's capital bill, or lack of one at this point, which has cost numerous communities, community projects. Capital bill should have had around 35 capital appropriation for the state capital improvement program, the revolving loan program, as well as the Clean Ohio program. Round 34, which the projects have already been selected. The Public Works Commission's going to acknowledge hard work that the integrating committees have done. When they do get capital appropriation authority, those round 34 projects will be released. No telling when that's going to happen, but I know past experience, all those project agreements have already been processed and they're ready to go. Natural Resource Assistance Councils and the District Public Works Integrating Committees have all been instructed not to accept round 35 applications, which those would be projects that we're funding in 2021. At the very soonest, if we do get what I'm expecting to be a thin capital bill, at best, if we get something through at the end of the calendar year, there's going to be a 90-day waiting period before that appropriation's effective, as it's subject to referendum. So my fear a little bit is we very well could be having round 34 and round 35 in the same construction season. I don't know what that's going to do the bidding environment. Time will tell on that. The other issue with deferred capital appropriation is the small government program, and they've just put that on hold for the time being. I know those projects and ranked, but they've deferred formalizing the projects until they know they have appropriation authority. The other contentious or frustrating issue we're dealing with is the state has not passed a reappropriation bill, which could impact existing projects right now. Tyler and I spoke about that a little bit. I believe it was Monday. But the state's accounting system shuts down June 12th. In the absence of a reappropriation bill, it remains seen when they're going to be able to, the commission's going to be able to move money. I spoke with a couple legislators last night, as well as the Public Works Commission. They're optimistic that a reappropriation bill will be passed by the end of June. Unlike the capital bill, they can put an emergency clause on reappropriation. So hopefully things are going to be back up and running then. Stay tuned. I would encourage you, if you have active projects and partial pay estimates or reimbursements you're going to be seeking, please try and get those to the commission by the end of May, before the June 12th shutdown the state accounting system for the end of the fiscal year. Finally, the local transportation improvement projects will be released on July 1. That was appropriated, and the reappropriation for that program was included in the state's transportation bill. So that program's gonna move forward pretty seamlessly. I guess I will throw out the next funding round for the local transportation improvement program is probably gonna be a little less robust than what people are accustomed to. That's funded via 1 penny per gallon on the gas tax, with everybody at home with nowhere to go. Gas tax revenues are coming in way below where they were projected to be, which is going to have an impact on the local transportation improvement program. I don't know if local governments are going to feel it much. They get a direct distribution of that, but with the pretty generous increase in the motor fuel tax, things will probably be pretty static there. I know the Department of Transportation is starting to defer major new projects until they realize, can figure out, exactly where revenue's going to land. I'm not expecting it to be anywhere close to what they were projecting during the transportation bill last summer. I know they were putting out estimates, what they felt everybody would get. That's going to come in below estimate. So I guess the final thing I wanted to let you know on the public works front, I think we have about 800 loans that are in current billing status. They're going to give everyone a deferral on their July payment. Invoices will not be sent out. You can still make your payment if you'd like. you can make a double payment in January or just flat out skip your July payment. I think the Commission's trying to acknowledge local governments in about the same position the state's in right now, which the governor said yesterday, revenues coming in roughly about $1 billion below estimates. They made major cuts, which gets that deficit down to about 250,000. And right now they're a little hesitant to use the rainy day fund to plug that gap. I think they're waiting to see if there is another federal stimulus bill, which usually comes with strings attached to the rainy day fund. They can use those funds anywhere they would like. So it's kind of a wait and see approach. Let's see what the federal government's going to do before we commit to using our rainy day fund to plug that gap. So with that, I will kick things over to Jennifer, and then we'll field any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Mike. I do want to, before I jump into mine, just bring up two things that I know, just for clarification. We know that if there is a LTIP project that was, I shouldn't say, the transportation project that was funded with a loan, I know that it typically has been understood that the transportation projects are moving, but if there's a loan component, it would not. So I know most districts on their charts would show where those funds were coming from, so you're aware of that. And Mike, if you want to, dive into that. The other piece we wanted to talk about is if somebody has a Round 33 project in process, is to ask for an extension. I don't know if you want to go over any of that, but we felt that if there was a concern over this emergency appropriation and the timing, that some communities may want to have an extension on their project.
And it's my understanding the program year 33 projects, or 34 that are on hold, when those go out, they're going to give everybody the opportunity, in fairness to the applicants, to revise their schedule. We've advised several clients, if you have a program year 33 project and you're feeling a little skittish with a lack of a reappropriation bill right now, we've been advising them, ask for an extension now and get that in writing from the commission. I think they're being pretty flexible, acknowledging the difficult environment that we're in right now, and granting extensions. But don't wait until you're past your date. Try and get that in writing now. And then Jennifer's other point is transportation projects that are funded through the local transportation improvement program. There is no loan component to that. So all those projects, the district integrating committees move to the state capital improvement program as it's a grant loan combination. So those are all going to be on hold. Thanks for bringing that up, Jennifer.
Yeah, I just know we had a client that had that. They thought their project was moving forward because it's transportation focused, but because there's a loan, it's not. So we just wanted to make sure that was clarified. So moving on into Ohio Water Development Authority, Mike had talked about how OPWC has offered a deferment. OWDA actually has a program called Emergency Relief Program, where when this started to happen, we immediately reached out to OWDA to ask if they're going to offer some type of deferment to communities that have loan payments. And the response that I received back is typically the emergency relief program is geared towards flooding, hurricanes, more event focused that had impacts on their system, and not necessarily an impact where the community is seeing a drastic loss in revenue. So unfortunately, they are not going to institute that program during this time. And I joked last week that they actually put a whole paragraph on their front website asking people to continue to make payments to the loan. So unfortunately, that isn't an option. The other thing related to OWDA that we wanted to bring up is there is a bill that was proposed, House Bill 264. This might be music to some of your ears. It would give OWDA the ability to refinance old debt that has high interest. And I believe it passed the House. It needs to go to the Senate. There has been nothing but favorable testimony towards this bill. So I see this as an opportunity for communities that if they're trying to figure out ways to reduce their overall cost, this is something to look out for. In the March meeting of OWDA, I wanted to just call attention to the fact that they've made changes to their alternative stormwater loan program and their brownfield loan program guidelines. These were not related to COVID, but what they did is they added a legal fee towards those projects. And they also get into more detail on how they're defining the contract interest. So for example, both of these programs, the fees can go up to $15,000 towards OWDA's legal fees. So I don't know if any of you use those programs, but I wanted to just raise attention to that because that's a fee that was not accounted for before. And the last thing, the board approved signing an agreement for the H2 Ohio program, which that was another new program the governor initiated, which we now know is on hold, but it does allow for OWDA to be a participant in offering loan products through H2 Ohio. Any questions on OWDA? Because then I'm going to jump into Ohio EPA. Okay. Hearing none, I'm moving on. When I reached out to Ohio EPA asking about their nomination process, we know that in March they accepted nominations for their water projects for construction. Right after that is when we were hearing about the capital budget concerns. I was trying to figure out if there was a way for communities to still be able to submit construction projects for water, knowing that there wasn't going to be a new round or at least a delayed round of OPWC. And I was told that it was too late for that. I also asked if any of the funding for that program was at any concern of being put on hold or not being available. And I told that at this time, there's no concern for the dollars for their water, which is WRSLA program. They did say that this has a potential to impact next year's funding round. So I just want to bring that to everybody's attention. It hasn't been quantified. And I would encourage you, they have their next nomination in August for their stormwater and wastewater projects, as well as water resource restoration sponsorship program, which is in July for stream restoration. I bring it up because I'm jumping ahead, but if there is an anticipated stimulus package for infrastructure, Debbie Nicholas from EPA had mentioned to me, if you recall how ERA stimulus funding came out, they were picking projects off of their program management plan. So it might be something to consider. There is no harm, no foul by getting your projects onto these nomination lists. You don't have to move ahead if you're not prepared to, but it's a great way to get your project where there's awareness of the need. I'm moving on after Ohio EPA to talk about ODNR. So we know when we first started teleworking that the PEG grants, that's the paddle enhancement grant, applications had already been submitted, but ODNR has decided not to award any grants through that program. And we are now aware that NatureWorks is now on hold. They won't have a round this year at all. They'll have a round next year. What still is open is their land and water conservation recreation program. And I believe that's because it's through federal sources. That application is due in November. It's a 50-50 grant, and you can get up to $500,000 in that program. So it's good to see at least not all of the ODNR programs are on hold. I looked at their boat infrastructure programs, the big program and the vessel safety device program. All of those are still open. So now I'm going to launch into federal dollars and the CARE Act. You know, it was interesting. We know that yesterday, I'm not going to rehash what Mike talked about in regards to what the governor said about our 800 million shortfall. And we do know through the CARE Act that the state of Ohio would have been distributed at least half of the $4.5 billion that's going to them. And there's specific elements that are eligible for the use of those dollars. And so, you know, primarily, I know you're familiar with them, but medical expenses, this would be testing for folks for the COVID. This is assistance with cost associated with setting up facilities for temporary medical centers. It is for PPE equipment. It has in there the ability to cover costs for disinfecting public spaces, public buildings. It also allows for the use of these funds for any of your safety forces, police and fire, for a variety of reasons, whether it's to, you know, mandate the, you know, stay-at-home order, any overtime. In the last Wednesday's webinar, Lieutenant Governor Husted had mentioned that they're not sure how they're going to distribute those funds. It sounds to me that they need all of the funding that they're getting through the CARE Act, but that they haven't made any decisions on how those dollars are going to get distributed. So I would say that, you know, wait and see if we hear any new news. I can say that through the CARE Act, there was additional distribution of funds to the Economic Development Administration, which right now, to me, it's the first and only funding that I would consider to be infrastructure stimulus. But EDA is getting an additional $1.5 billion distributed out to their regional offices. They fund projects that are under public works and economic adjustment and have an economic development focus. So if you have potential for a business coming in and you need to upgrade your wastewater plant facility, this could be a program that is an option. Their grants are 50-50, dollar for dollar. So I do know the notice of funding opportunity is out, and this is it's not deadline focused at all. You can submit at any time. And I had the opportunity to speak with Lee Sheary. He's a representative out of the Michigan office, but he said it's 3 times the amount that they normally would get in their district. So get your projects in early, because I imagine the money's going to go fast. Another one, there was additional dollars distributed through the Edward Byrne. It's a justice assistance grant. So typically this goes towards your police departments. This typically goes towards equipment and vehicles, not necessarily construction. And I do know the deadline for the state to submit their app is, I believe, this week. So there is potential for additional dollars through this avenue as well for communities. Another We're seeing another appropriation for CDBG funds. So the states have already gotten their normal distribution, but there are 2 more distributions that are getting sent out. As a matter of fact, for Ohio, there's an additional $35 billion coming on top of the $27 million they already have. There's supposed to be, the 3rd round is a distribution of $2 billion nationwide, and they have not defined the guidelines yet on how they're going to distribute those dollars. What we're hearing is it's going to be based on where the areas that have been hit the hardest because of COVID. So they're going to be looking at numbers of folks going to the hospital that are that have died. These additional appropriations are being geared towards senior services, homelessness services, and public health services. If we remember how ERA money was distributed, there was a lot of housing dollars, and we recognize folks were, they were not able to shut off utilities. So we believe that funds are going to go towards the ability for individuals that are eligible to be able to use those additional funds to pay, their back utility bills. We also know that landlords were asked not to file any evictions on tenants. So we see a lot of those funds getting distributed to support those initiatives on top of the public health initiatives. So I do know that ODSA has posted on their website that they're going to be collaborating with their community action agencies and revise their annual consolidated plan. And then they're going to issue a new application to pursue those dollars. So I would continue to watch their website. Obviously, if it's an application, it's competitive. The other thing that we saw is ODSA, if any communities that are on the phone call have a revolving loan fund that was originally funded with CDBG dollars, they are now giving those communities flexibility in the guidelines on distributing those dollars, meaning you can renegotiate old loan agreements to offer a reduced interest rate. And they're offering on any new loans, the ability for more of the funding to go towards the administrative or salary as opposed to using those dollars for equipment needs. I believe those are all my pieces. Do you folks have any questions?
I have a question, Jennifer.
Yes.
I know because we have a park district on with us, they're pretty aggressive planners. I know ODNR's trail program, should have been appropriated in the capital bill. Do you know what the status of that program is right now?
I know that we have applications out that we still haven't heard any results of those awards. But on the website, you don't see that they've got any listing that's similar to ODNR's NatureWorks listing that basically just, I think the exact verbiage says, due to the uncertainty of funding for state fiscal years 21 and 2022, we will be postponing the grant cycles for NatureWorks. There's nothing like that on the Clean Ohio or the Rec Trail programs at this time. My worry is it looks very similar to what they did with the PEG grants, is that, PEG, we had submitted applications, and then eventually everybody who had submitted an app got a letter saying that they've just chosen not to award projects this year. But I've not heard anything new on it. That's a good point.
Thank you.
Yep. The one last thing I failed to bring up, but if communities are looking at also ODOT State Infrastructure Bank as a funding source, one of the things I It's in their guidelines. Typically, they offer a loan product that's 10 years at a 3% interest rate, but they do allow the opportunity for the community submitting the app to request a lower interest rate. They say it's a case-by-case basis as long as you offer a compelling reason as to why you're asking for it. So I want to, let folks know that's an option for them. And the other thing is just to emphasize that recognizing we do know that some of the MPOs and local development districts at this time are asking all of the communities to start sending them their project ideas, and that they're actually comprising list on the potential opportunity that stimulus money is coming in for infrastructure projects. If my memory serves me right, I thought Omega was one of them. Was it Bellomar, Mike, at the last webinar that we offered? They said they had like
Buckeye Hills.
Buckeye Hills. They had 92 projects already on a list ready to go. I do know I went and I dug up back with ERA how we were getting projects on a list. I used to work for a city, so I realized my congressman was sending around a list for all of the highway transportation projects and economic development projects, and that our economic development agency was actually capturing a list of everything else. And then on top of that, I know that we had projects that were picked up that were on the EPA's nominated program management plan. And another area where we saw additional stimulus dollars come in are on federal grant applications where, for example, maybe they actually award 10 a year. They were actually able to do double that. I know that some of the brownfield dollars back then, they were actually distributing more grants because they had additional dollars in that program. So I just throw that out as just food for thought and something to think about. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody's time. Hopefully this information was helpful. We're available if you have any questions. All right.
Thank you for joining us.
All right.